Well, they're holding on to hope, but as the hours go by, families gathered around collapsed buildings in Syria and Turkey are fearing the worst as rescuers search through the rubble. The death toll from Monday's devastating earthquake has now soared past 20,000 people. And while we are still seeing some incredible rescues, they are now few and far between. Those are shouts of joy as a mother and her 6-year-old daughter were pulled from a home today in Turkey. Elsewhere in Turkey, a crowd cheering as this 21-year-old was rescued 84 hours after the quake. Well, every minute counts in trying to pull people out alive. Not only are those trapped lacking food and water, but freezing temperatures also threaten their survival. One rescuer broke down and cried from relief after his team saved a little girl. There's also an urgent effort underway to help the hundreds of thousands of people left homeless. Many are now spending a fourth night sleeping outside or in cars or makeshift tents, vulnerable to the bitter cold. Well, the World Health Organization warns that earthquake survivors could face a secondary disaster in the days and weeks ahead. As our Salma Abdelaziz reports, the earthquake is only deepening the suffering of Syrians who've endured years of civil war.
A rescue worker sings to little Mina, talks and shares stories with her. He goes on and on, chatting about anything to distract her from the horrifying reality that she's being extracted from the ruins of her home. Mina is eventually pulled out safely. Her family has also survived. Rescued by members of the White Helmets, a group of first responders seen as heroes in this rebel-held enclave of Syria. Nearly 12 years of war has made the group experts on the grim task of retrieving people from collapsed buildings. Syrians living in opposition-controlled areas, battered by the government of President Bashar al-Assad and feeling neglected by the world, have come to depend on only themselves, even in the aftermath of a devastating earthquake. The result is catastrophic. Here, there is a shortage of everything, even body bags. This man has arrived with just one bag to hold all 4 of his dead relatives. We hoped that countries would come to our rescue, he says, but there was only our community that came to help us. Nobody else. We have no one to help us. And for the thousands of wounded pulled out of the rubble, they face a healthcare system on the brink. Another volunteer group here is the Syrian American Medical Society, doing its best to provide care on the ground. But equipment and supplies are scarce, and countless deaths, they warn, could be prevented if they could just get the basics. And for those survivors, unharmed but made homeless, vehicles are now shelter. Sidewalks are beds. Shivering in olive groves is all that's left. A crisis within a crisis that's left those with nothing, somehow with even less. Salma Abdelaziz, CNN, Istanbul.
Well, desperately needed aid has now reached some of those survivors. A UN convoy crossed into northwestern Syria earlier Thursday, bringing the first humanitarian aid to the region since the earthquake struck days ago. We're joined now by Leila Tomei. She's a senior cross-border program coordinator with the UN's International Organization for Migration. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you have had operations to help Syria and have done so even before this massive disaster. Talk to us about how you got aid to the people there before this earthquake and now.
Usually we organize convoys of trucks loaded with humanitarian assistance together with our sister agencies, and these convoys cross through Bab al-Hawa border crossing point into northwest Syria, And on the ground, we have implementing partners, mainly Syrian NGOs, who help in the distribution and verification. And this is a normal operation that has been going on for years. Um, it was going normal until Monday when the crisis hit. So it was devastating for us to see that we couldn't even send our convoy on Monday.
Yeah, it's certainly devastating for the 11 million people that the UN say are impacted by the earthquake in Syria. Can you describe for us, Leila, the type of aid on those 6 trucks, that first convoy that arrived today?
We mainly sent hygiene kits and shelter kits and kitchen sets. And these items are very much needed at the moment because people have, as you have seen, have lost everything. At least if they can find some kind of like temporary shelter until more aid can go into Syria, into northwest Syria, they wouldn't, I mean, they would still suffer, but they wouldn't suffer as much without this kind of assistance that we luckily managed to send today. And thankfully, I mean, the Turkish government opened the border crossing for us to send the convoy despite all the huge impact that you can see in Turkey nowadays, and the efforts put into rescuing people also in several governorates in Turkey.
So there are not only political roadblocks, but logistical challenges. We heard from the White Helmets Rescue Group, who said they were disappointed by the aid that arrived, saying it was routine and it was expected to be delivered before this earthquake. What's your response?
I would say that everyone would also need to look at the devastation here on this side of the border. Our staff are suffering, our logisticians are suffering, everyone, the communities are suffering. So it wasn't easy to increase the number of trucks immediately, and it wasn't easy just to add to the truckload that we had. I think we can increase in the next few days, but the first 2 days after the earthquake, they were really, really hard on everyone. We have staff who lost families. We have lost also staff from IOM, from other UN agencies. So it wasn't easy for us just to be able to respond immediately on Monday. But now we have regrouped and donors started coming forward with more funding, and we think we can respond more quickly.
And tell us what can be expected in the coming days and weeks. There are thousands of people in Syria right now injured, needing medical aid as well. When will the next convoy of aid arrive?
I don't want to give promises because the logistics are becoming very difficult because of the roads conditions and the shortage of labor. But we are trying our best to send something in the next couple of days.
Okay, well, we wish you and your team all the best. Leila Tomei from the UN International Organization for Migration. Thanks very much for your time and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, Jumana Karachi is on the scene of a building collapse in a Turkish port city, and she saw families holding hands at the edge of the rubble, sick with worry and grief about their missing loved ones. One survivor told her, "We're breathing, but we're not living." Here's Jumana with more.
We're in the city of Iskenderun, that is part of Hatay province, one of the hardest hit provinces by this earthquake. And as we were driving into the city, you can see extensive damage all over the city center. And right here, we're told this was an 11-story building, and it was a newly built structure. There were only a few people who were inside at the time. And we have Server here who is with us. He's been out here waiting for news about your friend.
Yeah, my relative. He is my partner in work. We've been waiting here for 4 days now, and it's really hard to get him. Today, I think we are gonna get news about him. Hear news about him.
And you've been out here for the past
4 days. Yeah.
And I mean, have you seen any survivors coming out?
First day, 3 people got out alive, The second day, 3 people got out dead. The third day, 2 people. And now there's only 1 person left. So we are waiting to hear news about him. As you see, this is a 2-year-old building. And as one of the survivors say, as the earthquake began, the building just destroyed. Didn't even wait for any seconds. As it started, it just vanished. Yeah.
And how are you feeling? I mean, not knowing what's happened to your friends.
I'm confused. I don't know how to feel. Senseless. Yeah.
I mean, this must be really, really hard.
Yeah,
not
it is.
knowing,
It is
right?
hard. It is hard. Not for me. It's hard for the city. There's many people without a home, without electricity, without water. It's really hard for the people.
And do you have hope that they're going to
First day I was really hopeful because this building looked just fine, but this is the 4th day. I'm getting out of hope.
Well, thanks to Jemana for that report.